You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.
Join us now for the expert source for inside information on the options markets. It's time for Options Insider Radio with your host, Mark Longo.
All right, everybody, that music means it is time once again for Options Insider Radio, the interview program here on the old network where we welcome on guests from throughout the world of options and derivatives and indeed beyond and proceed to pick their brains for the benefit of you, the listener. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever-exciting, at least we hope so, Options Insider Radio Network. It's FIA week, listeners, which means a lot of people are coming to town here. A lot of people will be rotating through the studio over the course of this next week, so we should have some great guests lined up for you, including our next guest. He's a newcomer to the program and indeed to the network. He is Mike Wisnefski, the CEO over there at the MaterialsXchange. Mike, welcome to the Options Insider Radio program.
Thank you, Mark. It's great to be here.
And Mike, as we are wont to do with all of our first-timers here, why don't you go ahead and give our audience a little bit of an overview of your background and how you found your way to starting MaterialsXchange.
So I started trading lumber, actually buying and selling real truckloads of lumber back in 1995. I needed a job, and my college roommate was already in this business. So I called him up and said, who does what you do in Chicago? Because he was out in Oregon at the time. And there was a company here that I walked into the front door and said, I want a job. I want to sell lumber. They tried to talk me out of it a couple times. And
every kid's dream, hawking lumber. There we go. See, you were living the dream, sir.
Exactly. The only reason I chose it was because my buddy was making money doing it. So it seemed like a great thing. And they gave me a job. So then I started buying and selling truckloads of lumber. And that company actually was pretty involved with the lumber futures contract as well. So I learned how to trade futures with them. The whole hedging process of hedging physical with the derivative, and that got me in the industry. So then, at the turn of the century, around late 1990s, 1999, all my friends were doing Y2K stuff, and it was fascinating to me. And I'm in this old school industry of lumber that so I couldn't handle it anymore. I decided to leave, and I went and worked for Don Wilson at DRW. I was a clerk. In fact, Don called me up and hired me. It was pretty wild. So then I learned how to trade options at DRW, and the move there, that was at the same time that the ISE started cross-listing options, and it turned the whole option market making into turmoil.
I remember it well. I was on the SIBO at the time, and the looming specter of the ISE was a boogeyman for pretty much everyone in the business, certainly everybody on the trading floor back then.
Oh, yeah. The career path at DRW at that time was to head to the SIBO, and I said I had just come off a little stint working upstairs, actually trading on ISE products, And that was basically the first electronic marketplace that hit the U.S. I just didn't want to go to the floor. So a friend of mine hooked me up with a company in Glenview, DE Trading. And they were one of the first arcades. And so I got a job as a trader there, trading electronically on the Eurex platform. And those were the days where there was a up to 1 second delay from when you clicked until you saw your order actually get filled in the market. The market would go down. We'd lose our connectivity over to Eurex, and so many stories. I know a guy that hit the trade out button 4 or 5 times. And then when it came live, he traded out of a position 4 or 5 times. He went from long to really, really short. But I learned how to trade electronically, and it was cool. It was fun. And then in 2009, the CME announced they were putting lumber futures on the Globex platform. So I did what I call the reverse commute. I went from being an electronic trader to walking onto the floor.
Oh, you went down to the floor. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess that was kind of where you had to be to do the size in lumber, right?
It was. Well, there was nothing going on the screen. So I actually got a deal with the CME to be a market maker. And I was the first guy to walk into the lumber pit with a computer. And I made money day one, just arbitraging between the electronic market and the pit market. And then the market shifted really quickly. It was about 18 months for the market to go almost exclusively on the screen. And then I waffled back and forth between upstairs and the pit, because there would be times where there was business in the pit, but for the most part it was on the screen. And I was trading everything in lumber, trading options, trading spreads, trading outrights. And it was an interesting experience, and the experience there was important for what I'm doing here with MaterialsXchange. And I witnessed firsthand how a peer-to-peer market, the open outcry market, went digital. And I watched people fight it, and I watched people embrace it, on both sides of that. And obviously, the electronic market won out. And then, in the same time, there was stuff happening in our personal lives where stuff is going electronic. You saw Amazon, the emergence of e-commerce. Then we saw ride sharing with Uber and Lyft. And you just look at these markets all around you that if it's a repetitive process, you can put technology to it and digitize it. And as a whole, society will be better for it.
And so that was the launching pad, the germ in your brain for the idea that became a MaterialsXchange. Obviously, the name implies a certain thing, but walk us through what exactly are we doing here with MaterialsXchange?
Well, the first thing is there's no E on exchange. So we are not truly an exchange. It is the elevator pitch on this is it's commerce. It's e-commerce that has a user front end or a UI that looks, feels, and acts like a digital financial market, which that's really important, because in commodity markets, which we're addressing, the price moves up and down, and the average consumer doesn't get that. We're used to just storefronts. What's your price? And you walk up and buy it, or you don't. You just walk away. You don't put a bid into the market, but in the commodity world, both future side and on the cash side, the spot traded side, the bids are just as important as the offers. It's a two-sided transaction. So that's my long elevator pitch. It is e-commerce. We move goods, we move money, but we also do price discovery on the platform.
So you say it's not an exchange. One of the traditional roles of the exchange is what you just mentioned, kind of the price discovery. You have market makers and liquidity providers out there disseminating markets and providing that price discovery function. Are you saying by not having the E, there are no liquidity providers? It's more of like an order matching platform?
We do not have what you would traditionally say is a liquidity provider. Now, we are an open marketplace, so anybody can get on there, that any qualified person. Basically, if you are able to buy full truckloads of material or sell that full truckloads, you can be on there. And and I want to be specific that we're open, and we don't want to be there just for one segment of the market, the producers. We're not only representing producers. We're not only representing buyers. We want it to be free-flowing because that's the way the market should be. There are intermediaries that can provide a lot of value in that market-making function or liquidity-providing function at times in the market. But we don't define anybody's roles. If you can buy full truckloads of lumber, you can be a buyer. If you have full truckloads of lumber to sell, you can be a seller.
So obviously, we're talking about slinging large amounts of materials. You've talked a lot about lumber. I'm assuming lumber is in the initial mix, but What kind of goods, what kind of materials can I trade these days on MaterialsXchange?
Okay, back to the name. Materials is our core. We believe strongly in sticking to that marketplace, but you have to start somewhere. Lumber is my background. We're starting with lumber. Our vision is that any commoditized building material or raw material will be able to be traded on the platform. We need to kind of prove it to the marketplace first that lumber works, or that the marketplace works, and we're going to do that with lumber, and then we're going to move on. And in fact, I'm sure there's going to be materials that there's no market for them yet. They haven't even been created. Silicon chips could be on this market, or who knows what the next thing is. If it's a commodity, if it's a standardized product that's bought in large quantities in a wholesale marketplace, we can do that.
You mentioned you're not really an exchange, so places like CME shouldn't really see you as a competing marketplace, maybe more as an additive type of venue. People can come in and get the materials, and then they graduate to the products over there?
We actually have a vision that we will be a fantastic partner for these exchanges. If we are able to get a platform that is fluid, working well, side by side with a futures exchange, you'll be able to do your hedging. I mean, one of the hardest things about hedging inventory is trading out of that hedge, because they kind of, in a perfect world, they happen simultaneously. You move your underlying product and you take your hedge off. So if both markets are digital, you could actually have orders tied to each other, where if your product gets sold, you lift your hedge. So we have no interest, absolutely no interest in entering the derivative space. Like, we are a commerce platform.
And so obviously you're talking about hedging, so your contract specs then have to at least line up with what we're seeing on some of the other venues so people can come in and hedge effectively.
The answer to that is yes, but the answer is yes because the contracts that they trade on the derivative exchange are the most liquid, widely used. So yeah, that's going to be the product that or similar to the product that we trade. It would be illogical for us to have an item that isn't widely traded, right? So we're designing it that way, but there's a reason, because that's what's most widely traded, right?
It'd be bizarre to have some esoteric, crazy-sized contract that no one has really seen before or hedged. Speaking of seeing before, you guys went live on Monday. What's the response been like? You've already put up some trades on the platform. What are you seeing here in this early blush on the early days of MaterialsXchange?
Well, first off, we are calling them transactions. We are trying to differentiate ourselves from what is traditional exchanges, so we're going to call them transactions. They're same thing, they're trades. The first transaction was between a German sawmill and a family-owned regional lumberyard chain in Texas, and it really pleases me to see these two entities trade. First off, they had never done business together, so we connected them, they connected, I should say, through the platform, which is really cool. And second, it works well for the European sawmill. There's a time delay, there's a money issue, currency issues. Our platform unifies all of that, and it was able to connect two entities that are fairly distant as far as management goes. But the reality is, the German sawmill imported their wood into a port in Houston, and the wood's going up the road into the central Texas.
Now, did you guys facilitate this? Did you guys go out and find the lumber mill in Germany and the firm in Texas, or did they come to you saying we're looking to use your platform? How did you get this first trade off the ground?
I have relationships with both companies and people at both companies, and yeah, they see this as a valuable tool, as it helping them in their day-to-day business. So we got them trained on the system, and it was a natural fit. So yes, we sought them out. We marketed to them, but it was a really easy sell. These two entities, if the average person understood how much work it takes to try and effectively buy or sell lumber in the way the market works currently, the traditional method, it is a lot of communication. So basically what you're doing is through your communication, you create a single channel of data between you and a counterparty. On the platform, we aggregate those channels from every user and bring it to a central place, meaning one user can instantly connect with all the counterparties on the platform. So one seller can see all the buyers' bids. One buyer can see all the sellers' offers. So it just makes sense for them.
Adding a little transparency to that counterparty process, which can sometimes be daunting. Looking here right now, looks like your first products are oriented strand board, European spruce, and southern yellow pine lumber. Is that correct, sir?
It is very correct, yes.
And how's that product mix looking so far? Are you going to stay focused on the lumber scene for a while, or are you already planning the next iterations of what you're going to add here on MaterialsXchange?
You know what? We need to be really focused on the next 2 weeks, 2 months, 6 months, and make sure that this platform performs as we expect it to. At that point, adding more products is simply a user interface issue and a marketing issue. Once when the plumbing is proven, just adding more products. Down the line, I see products like rebar, which they make like spaghetti. Recycled papers, which that recycled papers is an interesting one in that it's produced by the consumer, by the masses, and it's consumed by the producers, if you would, the people that take the recycled papers and actually recycle it. But we, in our day-to-day living, all of us people create the product. We create recycled papers. So that's a really interesting marketplace that I think has a lot of potential.
And obviously, we're here talking during FIA week here in Chicago. You mentioned you're not looking to be a derivatives venue out there, but maybe you're down at the conference talking to some of these firms. What has the response been to some of the traditional industry players to this platform? Are they intrigued by it? Maybe it's something they want to somehow interact with, or are you looking at a completely different audience and a completely different market for this?
I can answer that a couple different ways, depending on which individuals we're talking about. When you talk to the players in the futures industry, they really can't believe that the market operates as inefficient as it does. Our futures world, you click the mouse, it happens. Even the trading pits were quite efficient compared to the way the cash markets operate. So when I'm explaining this and I say nothing like this exists, they don't believe me. I'm like, no, man, you check it out. You're going to find it does not exist. On the other end of the spectrum, the people that are involved in this cash daily market or the cash trade, they don't think it's really possible that we can put this digital because they don't have the experience of a digital market and how it works.
I heard similar things on the SIBO back in the day too, so it all can go digital at the end of the day.
Right, and our digital solution is very innovative. There's no doubt. Like behind the scenes, I'm not a tech guy, I'm a trader. My partners are the more techie guys, and the solution they came up with is really innovative. It's cool. I like it, and it surprised me a bit. I'll admit that for sure. I knew it was possible. I just didn't know how it was going to get done, and that's why I partnered up with these guys, right? But when you start going back to the cash market guys, when you start talking to them and you bring up places in their personal lives that have been digitized, all of a sudden you start to see the gears turning, and you'll hit that aha moment where they're like, oh, yeah, this could work, and it would be a benefit to me.
Well, Mike, I'm glad we can get you on. I have to say, lumber market, not one we talk about, or the materials side of lumber even, to get more esoteric, not one we get a chance to talk about a lot here on the network. So thanks for coming on and sharing all this with our audience. You already kind of gave us a bit of a hint, but if you want to leave our audience a little bit of a tease of what's coming down the pike from you guys over there at Materials Exchange, now is the time, sir. The floor is yours.
One of the really cool things that we have discovered is all of the ancillary revenue flows that come from once you have a market digitized. The obvious one is data, right? When we produce real-time market data in a lumber market, it allows people that aren't directly involved in the market or have never been involved in the market access, because they can start analyzing and make business decisions. You can't participate in something that you know nothing about. So that's going to be one really cool aspect. Another one is the freight market. So the futures traders aren't used to moving goods. We just make a trade and you see your statement at the end of the day. Well, we actually have to move the goods. Now, if we find where we can bring efficiencies to the freight market, we're going to create value for our users. And one of the ways that we've discovered this is that if we create a bid and an offer, so you have two users that you say they're 300 miles apart, and our system uses a freight rate of $1,000 to move this good, and that's how we're creating the prices on the exchange. If the bid and the offer are close, if there is a bid and an offer, there's a freight rate that will close that gap. If the gap is created because there's $1,000 freight, what if I get the freight for $500? Does that close the gap? Yeah, it might close that gap. It allows us to put a bid into a third market. We can bid in the freight market. So,
and is that with Freight Waves guys? Or are you going to do something separate on the freight? 'Cause I know they've been kind of trying to disrupt the freight side of the business as well. Or are you guys looking to maybe add a third rung, a third tier to your marketplace there?
Currently, there's no centralized freight market. FreightWaves is doing a great job at bringing data together, and they're creating that freight futures market, which is really cool stuff. Right now, there's load boards. They're kind of decentralized, So I guess I'm betting a little bit on the come that the freight market is going to get organized and have a central place that we can put a bid into. Initially, we're just going to end up bidding that on whatever various load boards are out there. But it's cool that we can put this bid in. Now, some of these bids are going to be horrible. There's no way any trucker will ever take them. But is a bid bad? No, a bid's just a bid, especially in a digital market. You could bid $1, you could bid $10, you could bid $500. It's great to have a bid. You ask any trader, you know what he wants? He wants a bid or an offer to look at. So there's no such thing as a bad bid. It may not be a valuable bid, but there's no such thing as a bad bid. That's to data, the freight thing, and also API, connecting into people's systems and eliminating the need for data entry. What most people don't realize, you talk about lumber, and we all kind of chuckle because we have this idea in our head that lumber is this lumberjack guy with a flannel shirt, out in the middle of the woods. But if you stepped inside one of today's modern sawmills, it would blow your mind the amount of technology they have. They can take a big round log, analyze it, do millions of calculations in a second to come up with the best cutting pattern to get the highest return from that log. It is absolutely fascinating. And then once they analyze it and figure out their cutting pattern, the saws are all computerized. And it cuts this thing up. It goes down. Back in the day, they had humans grading the lumber, saying, this piece has these defects, it's going to be this particular grade. That's all digital now and computerized grading. It is so advanced that they put serial numbers on every stick of wood. Certain sawmills can put a serial number on a stick of wood, and they'll have a picture of it in their database. So if it goes out and someone complains about a particular 2x4 8-footer, if it has a serial number, they can go back to the sawmill, and the sawmill will look at it and say, you're right, there is a knot 2 inches from the edge, a foot down, but that meets the grade.
I think especially what you mentioned about the data side and bringing more data to bear in an otherwise fairly opaque marketplace like lumber, I think will be fascinating. We've seen data changing the game in so many other spaces. I think that alone, you're right, could be a game changer for the lumber space. Well, Mike, I said, I'm glad we can get you on. And if folks are intrigued, they want to learn more, maybe they want to kick the tires over there at Materials Exchange. Where should they go? What should they do?
We'll check out MaterialsXchange.com, and you can put your contact info in.
Forget the E, no E, listeners.
No E. You do that, and we'll get back in touch with you for sure. We are open for business and open to all inquiries and questions. And, marketplaces. If you have a marketplace you think this kind of technology would make sense in, let's have a conversation about it.
That's Materials Exchange without the E in the middle there, listeners.com. Check it out for yourself. And Mike, like I said, I'm glad we can get you on. We'll look with great interest and keep an eye on all this and how it develops in the marketplace and hopefully becomes a marketplace in the coming months.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.